Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. Now, as per usual, I will be talking about something that might be a bit controversial and that some people might disagree with. And I just want to bring up the note that I'm not trying to be patronizing or undermining any field of work when it comes to this sort of topic. So, as a warning, please do not take it personally, as I'm not really trying to insult anybody. In my years of study and meeting people, I've noticed there was a trend that kind of happens when it comes to drawing and painting. And it's the idea that it's so much harder than if you were to just do graphic designing and 3D, among other fields, and any subfields within those fields, if that makes sense. After having seen a lot of my peers kind of migrate towards those fields, I really want to put a counter argument to that sort of thinking. So let me put it out there that I do not think by any means one thing is harder or easier than another, because each of those fields actually emphasize certain things that others may not. And some would actually be completely impossible to do without certain knowledge. On first glance, you may think, hey, drawing and painting seems really difficult. And really, it is. I'm not going to say that it's easy. It's something that it's a lifetime journey and it'll take years to even be competent at. However, what makes 3D work and graphic design work any different? I'm going to give you an example. So let's look at graphic designing. Okay, when we look at that field, we think, okay, you're making logos, you're arranging text, and it seems pretty easy, right? You're not really trying to paint realistically, you don't have to think about lighting, and color is very basic at times. That's really the first impression, right? However, when you delve deep into it, what's really the one thing that graphic design emphasizes that drawing and painting doesn't? It's design. It might be obvious, but it's design. And that includes something that is neglected in most cases, and that's composition. You cannot have a good anything in graphic designing if you do not understand the principles of design and composition to the T. You could get away with having a lack of knowledge here and there when it comes to drawing and painting, but graphic designing, because everything is stripped and simplified into logos and text, you cannot make a single mistake without really showing up in your work. Ask any graphic designer. I have friends who are graphic designers, very professional level. They will tell you this stuff is not easy. And when I try to do some sort of graphic designing and I show them, they will point out every little mistake that you can possibly think of. As per usual, if you want to be really good at graphic designing, you would have a lifetime of experimenting and professional experience in order to reach a really high point. Alright, let's look into 3D work. Might be easy, right? You would think, hey, I can make all these characters without even having knowledge of creating illusions with two-dimensional media. All you have to do is sculpt out the 3D model. Seems simple, right? The program does everything, right? As a person who have delved into 3D as well, let me tell you, it is very difficult and not something you undermine. So unlike drawing and painting, there are a lot of technical aspects, especially when it comes to software, that you must know when you're doing 3D work. And that's not even including that you must have a great sense of anatomy, great sense of volume, great sense of structure, something that, of course, drawing and painting emphasizes. Now, of course, you could argue it is a bit harder when it comes to doing that on a flat surface instead of a 3D program, but let me tell you, if a 3D modeler who does not know this type of knowledge does something, it will show clearly in their work. A lot of cases, many people who are missing some of that two-dimensional knowledge are going to make a lot of mistakes when they transfer that into 3D work. And let's make one more thing clear. When it comes to animation, you are still using the same theory that you would if you were to draw out the 2D animations. So when it comes to doing 3D, it shows if you do not understand how movement and other art theory works. So again, it's similar to learning the same fundamentals, but you have to add on to technical software aspects of 3D work. So why do people gravitate to those fields? When I've already explained that they are not to be underestimated when it comes to difficulty. It's actually very simple. The skill floor for drawing and painting is a lot higher than 3D and graphic designing. While graphic designing and 3D are very hard in their own right, they are less prone to showing a ton of mistakes. So what I mean by that is an average graphic designer can make something very average and it would still be passable on brochures and billboards and all of that stuff. Because most people wouldn't be able to distinguish what's great to what's acceptable. Now, of course, drawing and painting is different. The standards are different. If you are trying to portray realism, there are a ton of things you can do in order to make it not look realistic. And drawing and painting is very, very prone to showing up all your mistakes. That's not to say bad 3D and bad designs do not exist. However, it's more likely to land you a job if you are average at those than if you are average at drawing and painting, and that's really a fact. In addition, you can argue that there are more positions when it comes to 3D and graphic designing, which also goes back to the skill floor argument. When it comes to being hired as a painter or a drawer, you are most likely going to have to be very, very good in order to show that you are capable of doing the work. Whereas when it comes to graphic designing and 3D, there are a ton of jobs available, meaning there are positions of different skill levels all across the board. So really, what's my conclusion when it comes to this stuff? Do not underestimate a great 3D artist and a great graphic designer. Choose what you are passionate at and don't look at it as something is easier than another. Because really, all of these fields have a huge skill ceiling. and you will most likely learn a ton of things as you keep doing it. If you like drawing and painting, please do not transfer to something else simply because you think there's no way you can get money off of doing it. Again, if you are aiming to be good at whatever you are passionate at, eventually people will always notice. And that's something I try to drill in everyone's heads. Anyways, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.